All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome. So glad you're here. Welcome to our live stream grassroots event. Shout out to Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube for tuning in. We are excited for tonight's event with two amazing special guests alongside with Andrew. Before we get started, I'd like to give some special gratitude to Jay Rosenzweig and Corey McGuire for hosting tonight's event. And if you would like to support Andrew's run for mayor, go to yforny.com/donate. So with that, I'm so hyped to introduce ASAP Ferg, one of Harlem's own, and Baron Davis, NBA professional. So excited you're both here. Andrew, are you ready to kick it off?
I am very ready to kick it off. And I think ASAP Ferg, budding musical legend of New York City, I think you did an okay job with that introduction, Erica. But I don't know about this Baron Davis NBA professional. What's that about?
I like that. I like
I'm gonna
that.
give it another shot with Baron. Baron Davis,
Oh.
creative powerhouse, multi-time All-Star, like the producer of some of the greatest basketball highlights of all time. I mean, like some of the like your dunks in Golden State during the We Believe era. And most importantly for a lot of New Yorkers, Baron Davis, former New York Knick. I mean, shit, your Knicks career, I remember being so pumped when the Knicks signed you because you're one of my favorite players. You're one of a lot of people's favorite players. And I know the Knicks stint wasn't as productive as we'd hoped because it was cut short by injury. But that's my attempt at a proper introduction for Baron Davis because Baron Davis is a freaking legend. But I have to say, when I was preparing for this event, first, I'm super grateful to you all, to Jay, to Corey. But the most fascinating story I wanted to hear that I think a lot of people want to hear, and this is very much on point with the topic of this discussion, is I want to hear how Ferg came up. I want to hear how the heck you started out because I feel like it's like the hardest thing in the world to make it in the industries that you made it in. I think you started out designing your own clothing line. Is that right? In Harlem, in your teenage years?
Yeah, actually, growing up in Harlem, my father was a designer. He passed away, he's deceased now. But he did the Bad Boy logo and the Uptown logo for Andre Harrell. So the Bad Boy logo for Diddy. So he's always been, doing t-shirts and, graphic designs for, people in the industry, NBA players and, all of the cool people. And I followed in his footsteps. I went to art and design high school to major in fashion and fine arts. And I graduated, went to college, Brooklyn City Tech for marketing management. And I left school, but that's always what I've been into, business and art, fashion, and like early on, I started a clothing line called Devoni. And I took on like the legacy of my dad. Like I just started like printing t-shirts. He died of a kidney failure. And I just took his legacy on and just everything he had taught me.
Oh, well, that's incredible. You're a product of New York City public education through and through. And you went to like an arts high school, then you went to it sounds like an arts college. And so after you left college, you were working in fashion, it sounds like. And then at some point, someone heard you rap or you did some rap. And then people realized that you actually had a huge future in music. Like, when did you discover that music was going to be where you were going to utilize your talents most?
I discovered when music was gonna be a thing that I would do when they wanted to sign me. Before that, I was just like, man, I'm pretty sure like for Baron, it's like, you trained all your life, to probably become like a huge basketball player and you had this thought in your mind. For me, it was never really like that as far as music. Like I never really dreamed of being like a huge rapper or like everything that I've accomplished, platinum records, performing at the Garden and, Barclays Centers and all of that stuff. I never really dreamed of it. I just knew that I'd be big. I didn't know exactly what I'd be doing. I knew that I'd be a mogul. I knew that I'd be doing something important. But I always had a lot of talents. I always was into art, always was into fashion. just super creative things. I just happened to know how to rap really good. And me and Rocky, we actually did a video, and it blew up. And then everybody was like calling our phones. It landed us a deal. And like people would be like, "Yo, like I wouldn't call it an overnight success." It was an overnight success.
How old were you when that video with ASAP Rocky came out?
I would have to say, since like ASAP the collective started 06, so I have to be sometime around then.
Yeah, so that would have, so you're 32 now. That would make you, oh my gosh, like 18? Is that right? No, that can't be right.
Yeah, well,
yeah, the youngsters.
Yeah, we landed. I dropped Trap Lord, I think 20. This is so long ago, but I probably dropped Trap Lord 2012, 2013. We started ASAP 06, but we didn't really start like gaining traction and going into business until like about like 2011, 2012.
But still, that would make you very young during this period. I mean, in my mind, you're kind of still young now. No, I mean, you're in your 30s. You're like in your prime now.
Yeah, I'm a man. I'm like officially a grown man. Yeah.
Yeah, but still, we're talking about 2011, 2012. You're like in your early 20s.
Right.
So that timeline's right? It seems like for you all, like you were kind of on a rocket ship relatively early on. It sounds like.
Yeah. You know what I think it is? I may like say like, it was an overnight thing, but I think it was trial and error for me, just for kids looking and people looking, being from the city and knowing how hard it is to come up out of the city, there's a lot of odds against us. And, you have to dodge a lot of things. There's a lot of things being thrown at you. I had to look and search for certain answers. I had to have like logic, understandings of certain things, because I could have fell in a lot of the pit holes that was happening, that my friends fell in. So it was a lot of things that, and basically a school of hard knocks I had to go through that led me to where I was at, because I understood the opportunity of something and I ran to it, I hopped to it. If I didn't have like some of the roadblocks or experience seeing certain things coming out of New York City, I may have not known to like take, becoming a rapper super serious or, actually digging in. And, when I got my first lawyer, I hired a lawyer to look at my lawyers, I hired a lawyer to look at my new lawyer stuff, because the label gave me that lawyer. And I'm like, if I get into problems with the label, then, that's a conflict of interest. So I use a lot of logic and smarts to, kind of guide me to where I am now.
That's actually a really pretty big business opportunity, to get like a second opinion on your legal representation. Like in my mind, yeah. I think Dave Chappelle recently told a joke about that in terms of his first deal with Comedy Central and the rest of it. You probably saw that stuff. I want to come back to some of what you talked about in terms of like the stuff you had to dodge, the inspiration you got from your dad. Because I think that stuff's really, really like compelling. But Baron, you had a completely different experience, because as far as I remember, you were one of the top high school basketball players in the entire country, in Los Angeles. You got signed by, I want to say, UCLA, which it was a powerhouse. It was your hometown. So you got like a charmed freaking, like top of the world basketball career since you were in high school. And then I want to say you went to the NBA draft after either 1 or 2 years in college, and you were like the number 3 pick overall. And so like, where Ferg like had, Ferg, it sounds like, again, you hit your success pretty early, but like, for you, Baron, you've grown up in essentially a national spotlight since you were in your mid-teens. Like, how the heck did you stay grounded during that period? Because I feel like that would have overwhelmed just about any young person, the stuff that you'd gone through.
One, I say, very similar to, Ferg. I went to a private school. And I used to say that my life was like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, except I went to the hood. I went back home to the hood every day, and the hood in South Central. So it wasn't quite the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. It was the Fresh Prince of the hood. And anytime, especially here in LA, one of the most segregated places, in the country, there are haves and have-nots. And so I didn't see the beach until I was in 7th grade when I got to a private school. And, I used to take me an hour and a half to go from the east side, South Central Watts to Santa Monica to the beach just to get to school. And I remember every day I would take that journey, I would realize that, I was the only one that was doing this, right? I was the only one at this school that was like that. And, with that came privilege, right? With that came opportunity. And so as I was growing in basketball, my homeboys were, growing on the streets. And, they were the resources and the doors and the windows of opportunity that was opening for me. You know what I mean? It was other kind of doors and, less opportunity opening for them. And so by the time my senior year came around, I just felt like every day, I take this path and I take this journey from, the have-nots to the haves and everybody in between. And so my responsibility was really going to be, to build a bridge, because every opportunity I got, I tried to take my homeboys to like a dance at Crossroads or the prom, or, get them an opportunity to see that, but then take my teammates, to my neighborhood, to my grandma's house and be like, yo, see what it feel like to live here. So I always felt like I had a responsibility. So when I chose UCLA, it was really a choice of, do I want to be the best basketball player that I can ever be? Or do I want to put on for my city and stay here? Because I know these young basketball players, they need me, they look up to me. And so with that, I kind of chose to go to UCLA because I had decided early in my life that, no matter, how great of an NBA player I would be, I got to build this bridge. You know what I mean? It got to be more kids like me. There was kids better than me, smarter than me. So, we got to build these bridges across the city where, these kids can have access. And so I think, my journey was always trying to figure out as much as I can, even in the NBA, so I can always go back, right, and start building that bridge and finding the right people that can help me do that. And so with all that, I would say, just lucky, privileged, humble, and always thinking about, how can I help, young people and people who are, even before me, coming after me, how can I help them get to where they need to go? Because, shit, man, it's been a struggle, you know what I mean? But at the same time, like, nothing feels better when you can actually see, a lot of the youth in LA and LA basketball where it is. And, the fact that, guys are unified in LA, and, just the love that, you can spread through sports is tremendous, and also through music.
That's incredible, Baron. It seems like you were very committed to Los Angeles since very, very early on, and it's easy to understand why, given the experience you had, traveling from one community to the other. I was an entrepreneurship mentor to the NBA Players Association for a couple of years, so I meet with players who are trying to, frankly, transition to a post-playing career, and one of the things that struck me is how difficult that was for a lot of them, because, and this is different from you, I think, because you had a different perspective from early on, but a lot of them were laser focused on basketball, very understandably so, because they're trying to freaking compete, for like the most desirable, lucrative jobs in the world. And then when their career comes to end at a relatively young age and they look around, they're like, okay, like what the heck do I do now? And so it's difficult for them because they've been so focused. But another thing that I caught on from hanging out with them for a little while is it's really hard for them just to say like, hey, I don't know, or I don't understand, because they're like, they've been in such a position of like competitiveness and authority, and people think they're made of money now, even though like a lot of the money is not what people think it is. you know, because it gets taken up by a whole combination of things like taxes, expenses, like, you know, like you know, a lot of stuff. So my question for you, and Ferg, it sounds like really took a lot of inspiration from his father, and his father building this business. Did you have an inspiration in terms of like the non-basketball activities? Because it sounds like you were thinking of stuff bigger than basketball from early on.
Yeah, I would say shout out to Marshall Rouse, who just turned 92, former senator. I remember getting to Charlotte as a rookie, and he was like, I'm going to be your friend. I'm going to adopt you, and I'm going to take you to lunch. And he took me to lunch, and he taught me about bonds. He taught me about investments. He taught me about compound interest. He taught me how to golf, you know, and he taught me the business that he was in, and he was in the Christmas business. And he just started to break down his business the way that he would break down, you know, my NBA contract. Right. And, you know, he was the first person to say, like, yo, when you get your money, and he was like, I want you to play a joke on everybody. Just keep putting your money in the bank and watch the bank teller. They're going to think you're like robbing somewhere, you know, robbing a place, and like depositing it into this bank. And lo and behold, 4 checks into my rookie season, you know, the president of the bank wanted to set a meeting with me. And when I walked in the meeting, he told me everything that, you know, Grandpa Rouse taught me. So, you know, it's been people like that. I would say for athletes, you know, you said something that, you know, athletes, they're afraid to ask what they don't know, right? I think the problem has always been, you know, them believing in what they do know, right? And having people and influences and, you know, the other people outside of what they know, trying to influence them and make them believe that they don't know something. And so for us, business inside the game is, you can learn, you know, Ferg, you know, he hired a lawyer to watch a lawyer. That's business, right? That's not music. That's business 101. And so, you know, there's things that he knows, right? And so if we lean into, you know, and I tell that if we lean into who we are, what we know.
To add on to what you were saying. Go ahead. Yeah. No, sorry to cut you off, but to add on to what you were saying, it wasn't like I had any money to hire another lawyer. I didn't have no money. So I was just resourceful because I knew a friend that was going to law school, and I asked him, I said, do you know anybody who, you know, does entertainment, like an entertainment lawyer? Because he was doing criminal law, and he knew an entertainment lawyer who wound up being my lawyer's, my lawyer was his protege. So he knew my lawyer already. He seen my contract, and he was like, oh, she knew better than this. She knew better than this. So it was more of a favor that he did for me. So I couldn't even pay for it. So it's also about being resourceful as well.
Yeah, and I would say you knew your value, bro. You knew that you are not going to sign that contract without making sure you was a boss, right? Because if you didn't see yourself as a mogul, right, then you wouldn't have never sought out to seek resources. You know what I mean? And I think that's a lot of time that, you know, in our community, and what is now to come is like, now that information is there. We're seeking that information. And now you're getting ASAP Ferg, hyphenate, multi-entrepreneur, you know, creative investor, you know, like what a real brand is that understands its worth. So, you know, I would say that's my learnings from Grandpa Rouse is, you know, learn your worth, learn your value.
Yeah, so one of the things that I can sense that both of you absorbed over time was that that if someone says like, oh, it's complicated or whatever, then that's when you're like no, it's really not that complicated. Like if you can't explain this to me, then you know, like that's like that's not something that I should just like trust. Like, because when it comes down to it, you know, a lot of folks like kind of try and like cloak things in jargon or complexity or the rest of it and say like, oh, like don't worry about it and the rest of it. Like that's just bad advice, bad advisor. You know, if you have like a good person, they will be like, okay, here's what the issues are, here's what this says, you know, like, and make you the boss. You know, it like to make sure that any business decision is yours and not, you know, your lawyers. So, Ferg, you talked about your dad, and I have like a very, very strong belief that folks who grow up in family businesses end up with like a very, very different mindset, a different approach to their career than folks who did not. And in my case, I will speak very, you know, about like my experience. Like, I did not grow up around a family business. Like, my father was a lab geek for IBM, and my mom worked at the local state university of New York. So the message that my brother and I got was get good grades, like go to school, et cetera, et cetera. For you, like growing up around a family business, it sounds like you did have some pressures and some pitfalls around you growing up in Harlem, and then you had your father as like kind of this role model or inspiration. Can you talk about when you knew that you wanted to go into business for yourself, that you wanted to do your own thing creatively?
More than just my father, to add, like I have a great family. Like my mother graduated college with her master's, and my stepdad also, he's an accountant. He graduated with accounting major. So I grew up with people who they knew the best, and they knew what they knew what to expect they knew what they could expect for themselves, and they knew what they expected out of me. My dad made it differently. My father was more of an entrepreneur, and he went out and started his own businesses. So that's where I got the entrepreneurial spirit from, and like building off of my art and my craft. And my mom's is more so like, you know, went by the books, and like, you know, she had like a well-paid job and did her thing, and she finished college. Me or my father didn't finish college, so I kind of leaned more on my father out because I have a creative mind. So, you know, I had no choice. If I didn't want to work for nobody 9 to 5, I had jobs, you know, doing security or like Ben and Jerry's. And it was like, it was not enough. And it was like, if I'm putting in this much work in for somebody else, I would like to put this much work in, or tomorrow if I work even harder, I want to see the benefits from it. Like if I hustle harder, like when I was printing t-shirts, you know, if I print 100 shirts and then like I got something from it, and then tomorrow I print 200 shirts, I get more money, and and if I get smarter and I figure out a way to sell 200 shirts in the Bronx and then in Brooklyn through other people, then my business is growing rapidly. However hard I went, that's how my money was growing. So my business sense started early when, you know, my father, he was going through struggles with his store. He had a store called Ferg Apparel. It was a boutique. He also had a restaurant called Heggy's. When his restaurant started to give him trouble, he went back to like printing t-shirts and printing stuff for people and printing shirts and taking it to stores, and just basically he'll take shirts to the stores and they'll give him money for it wholesale. So he'll give me some of the shirts off the top to earn my own money. And that's how I started going to high school,
That's
hustling my own t-shirts.
That's a good training. Here's some extra merch and like, you know, see what you can do with it.
Exactly. So he chose, so like when it was like, and you know, I don't fault anybody for what they do. You know, we come from a hard place, but when it came down to like all of the things that was in front of us, like, you know, the drugs or this, that, and the third, I had that hustle ingrained in me for t-shirts, and like it's a legal gig, and you know, I made a good amount of money off of t-shirts, and then when I discovered how to make a website, it was over.
So I wanted to just interject here. We've got a couple of questions from the folks in the room with us. We've got Christopher Seeley. He has a question here. Each of you are exceptionally successful, likely because you are exceptionally talented, exceptionally smart, exceptionally driven. He's using exceptional a lot, but you are exceptional with your timing. But in 2021, New Yorkers shouldn't need to be exceptional like a Baron Davis or a Ferg or an Andrew Yang to have a happy life and have their needs met. We know that our communities need to come together, but what is the role that government must play to make this happen, and why are conversations like this so important? He'd love to hear from each of you. Since
is Is this Chris Seeley, the DJ? Can we find out? Because I actually know a Chris Seeley. I'm just wondering if this is the person.
You say,
Yes,
you say,
sir.
yeah.
He
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
yes,
It is
sir.
absolutely. And I just want to say one quick thing. He wanted me to tell you all that he's his son is just about to go to bed, and he's been dunking on his Nerf basketball thing, saying, "I'm Baron Davis, I'm Baron Davis." But yeah, it's Chris Seeley. No joke.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, so I'll start off on this one. I completely agree that we have to be looking out for people who've been left behind or are struggling right now. There's so much pain in New York City in particular right now. We're down 700,000 jobs, 27,000 friends, family, neighbors, and loved ones. It's going to be a really difficult road back. Food lines are around the block. And one of the reasons I'm running for mayor is I think that it starts with better functioning government. But I think that you're going to need the philanthropic sector, the nonprofit sector, entrepreneurs, technologists, the private sector. And one thing I'd point to right now is like our path back is the vaccine. But then to supplement the vaccine, we're going to need a way for people to quickly and easily verify they've been vaccinated or tested negatively so they can go to a ball game, they can go to a concert, they can go to a restaurant, they can go to a bar. So that's going to be something that, frankly, I don't think the government is going to build. And there are tech companies in New York I've been talking to that believe that they actually can produce this vaccination passport as quickly as possible. So, Chris, I completely agree. We got to be looking out for the struggling New Yorker, the average New Yorker. People are struggling in Los Angeles. I know Los Angeles had a terrible time with COVID. The government can be a huge leader or a catalyst. But one of the things I have found is that a lot of people want to help. And one thing that public sector leaders can do is they can call folks up and be like, hey, like, do you want to help out on this project? Do you want to help solve this problem? And a lot of people will be thrilled to take that call because you can tell how bad things are, frankly. And like a lot of people want to roll up their sleeves and do what they can to get us through this time.
Great. Do you have something to say too, Baron?
Yeah. I need to read the question correctly again. Can you?
You want me to say it again?
What does government need to do? Yeah, please.
Yeah. We know that our communities need to come together, but what is the role that government must play to make this happen? And why are these conversations so important?
Yeah, I think, these conversations are important and necessary because government needs to stop lying, period, point blank, and doing nothing but lying. You know what I mean? And it's smoke and mirrors. And so, I think that, COVID is an opportunity, to teach us, right? Where there's, exceptional hard times comes, is where exceptional people step up. And I think, just talking about New York, New York is one of the leaders, you know what I mean? And hard work and grit and being exceptional, right? In everyday life, right? And I think that, government has to do a better job of coming together, right? The people are doing their jobs, the people are listening, but we got to stop being lied to, right? Even if you can't do it, don't lie. You know what I mean? Because that's just, that is not going to bring any type of unity. And then I think that, let's call these people, whoever at the top, exceptional thinkers. They should be using this time while they're quarantined in their penthouses and in their New York apartments to really think about, when we do get back in order, right? How are we going to affect the school systems? How are we going to affect the arts? How are we going to affect, the streets, the workers, the haves, the have-nots, right? And really, use the time to get on the Zoom and do things like this, but really figure out a game plan where people who normally wouldn't have time to have time for each other, walking past each other in offices, walking past, having conflicting meetings. Now you got the time. You can sit down, you can get on the Zoom, and government from all sectors can come together and say, okay, who are our leaders? We need to hear from, like I say, the people closer to the problem are closer to the solution. And so this is the most opportune time for government to do that.
Yeah.
I just want to give a quick shout out that Barron has actually been leading convenings, getting leaders from different sectors, public, private, technology. So if you want to hear more from some of the folks at Barron's gathering, Barron, what's the best place to do that?
BigSummit.co. Business Inside the Game. So it's BIGSummit.co. That's after BIG too. Shout out to Biggie.
For whatever reason, I thought it was kind of a plan. Because you were B Diddy, so I heard big, and I just thought that it's got to combine.
Notorious BIG stand for business instead of game, and so he said that. So I was like, yo, this is revolutionary, because Biggie is one of my favorite rappers, favorite people, favorite poets that I listen to. And when he said that, it was just like, oh, now I get it. Right. And so he was about his business. Right. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't just, he wasn't just spitting game, you know what I mean? And so business inside the game is the business inside the game, not just playing it, but getting
That's
inside.
A beautiful homage, Barron. And one of the reasons I wanted to give the shout out to BigSummit.co is because you're the sort of leader that, you say people should be getting together, you're not going to say it, you're actually making it happen. So wanted to steer people in your direction. Ferg, let's imagine that I'm the next mayor of New York City, and we're having this conversation. Please, do you have any guidance as to where we should be focusing our attention?
This is our first time meeting, you and Barron, and I'm still learning you as if you're still learning me. And I would like to know what you think you would, what you would bring to the table as far as police brutality, and how we handling that problem with, guys that may, officers that may be from the suburbs or a different part of town, and they come into our neighborhoods and they may not necessarily know how to treat our people because they don't come from where we come from, or they may see a guy with tattoos and a hoodie on and a chain and assume that they a gangster, when it could be a 9-to-5 worker or just a normal person. I feel like that's a huge problem in the neighborhood. I see a lot of people get, it's a lot of brutality happening. I grew up, I experienced it myself where, cops stopped me and, manhandled me right before I went to high school. Or I seen friends, get manhandled. So that's a huge problem I would like to figure out a solution for. I just wanted to know, is that on your radar of
of course, Ferg. It's got to be one of our top priorities. Just yesterday, I met with a reformer whistleblower, actually, named Edwin Raymond. Have you guys seen the documentary Crime and Punishment on Hulu? If you haven't seen it, it's great. It's a must watch. But Ferg, you'll appreciate hearing that I actually have championed the idea of new police officers living in the city and in the communities that they're serving and protecting. We actually require that of city employees and other agencies, and we don't require it of cops. So to your point, a lot of cops are coming in from Long Island or the suburbs or Jersey, and we're saying, look, they should live in the city. It would actually help on multiple levels because they'd understand the community better. They'd be of the community. They might even have some relationships they can draw on. But they'd also be commuting within the city. So, you'd have thousands of people who are, just actually frankly, able to respond, to situations that they witness in a way. I think that would increase the trust. I think that we need a civilian police commissioner who's not of the NYPD culture. Because if you're going to change a culture, you have to change it at the top. It's if you have someone who's of the same general group, it was installed at the top, nothing fundamental is going to change. So you need someone who's independent of the culture. I've committed to a civilian police commissioner. And the argument I've made is, look, we do this at the federal level. We put a civilian in charge of the Department of Defense. We don't have the military, because the military has a very specific culture. The NYPD has a very specific culture. So you'd want a leader who's not of that culture if you want them to evolve, and the police accountability that I want to see is also around like what's called a clearance rate of a lot of like the things that are happening, which is essentially resolving crimes. Like right now, we have a terrible combination in New York City where crime is rising and the resolution rate is falling. And when I talk to folks who are in any community in New York City, whether like black, white, brown, like people are concerned. They're looking up and saying, "Look, I do not want to be harassed by the cops, be afraid of cops, like have my civil rights abused by cops." But I want there to be someone that is on call if like there is an issue. I talk to NYCHA residents who actually want a cop station like in their development because there are safety issues. So one story I do tell actually, Ferg, is and this is true because I was just in Harlem like a couple of days ago. So I was in Harlem and there was like a black cop and his partner was I think a Latino woman. We just shot the shit for a little while, like had a great exchange. Like the rest of it. There are a lot of cops that just want to actually serve and protect and do good stuff. We just have to empower them and then change the culture of the folks who, frankly, tend to be closer to the top that have been making it harder for good cops to do what they signed up to do. But I'm very committed to this because it's a core problem. You need to reform the culture of the NYPD.
Right.
So we literally have like 2 minutes left.
No, that's impossible.
I know. Can you believe it?
I would have to do this like every week.
The time has
forever, because that's nuts.
So I just wanted to.
Ferg got more questions.
I know, it's so good.
No, I'm sorry. Geez, I can't believe that time flew like this.
I know it just went so quickly. So I know we have to wrap it up, and I just wanted to see if there's any last words everybody wanted to give. Just a couple last thoughts. You've been so inspiring, and people are really excited about this conversation. Maybe we could do it again.
Oh, let's pass the mic. Baron, go ahead and say something, and then I'll let Ferg close it out.
Yeah, one, just thanks for having me. We can run this back on Business Society again because I think me and Ferg, we got some real questions, you know what I mean? And I think, one, thanks for having me on the platform. One, getting to know you, Andrew. It's been pretty cool. Thank you, Jay. ASAP, I'm a huge fan. Likewise. Of you, young king, young legend, and hope to be connecting with you. But just for the people in New York out there, it's like, I would say it's about the people. You know what I mean? It's about the New Yorkers. Like, I'm from LA, and we got a lot of our energy, a lot of our swag, a lot of our culture, from New York. So I would say to the people in New York, it's like, we behind you. You know what I mean? It's your fight. It's your push, and what's best for you. So, that's what it is.
Thank you, Baron. New Yorkers love Los Angelinos too. So, I know it's been a hard time out there. I agree, though. New York has an impact well beyond the city itself. Like, if we get things right in New York City, it can spread throughout the country and the world. Ferg, Go ahead, take us home.
Yeah, I'd just like to add to what Baron said. Like, basically, it's nice to sit down and see your ideas and us use this platform to see what people want to know and answer some questions for the people. And I'm just here to make the world a better place to live in. So, let's continue to build, outside of this. This is just a start for us. And like he was saying, I do have some more questions. And let's just continue to build.
Well, thank you both so much. You're both class acts and incredible role models. And this was way too short. Let's definitely do it again. But let's get New York City back on its feet. There's a lot of pain, a lot of struggle right now, and we can help. So that help a nonprofit, help a food pantry, help in any way you can. If you have like friends and family, just check in on them, make sure they're okay. That's the kind of time we're in. We just need to reach out to each other, bring people together, My campaign right now, we're getting out vaccination information to people because we think there's a lot of confusion around that. I say there's actually extra confusion, frankly, in communities of color that have like lower levels of trust. I'd actually even include the Asian American community in there. Like I'm hearing that a lot of Asian Americans are scared of the vaccine among the older population. So right now our campaign is trying to get information out to people like that. That's the kind of thing we all need to be doing more of. So grateful to each of you. Thank you, Ferg. Thank you, Baron. Thank you, Jay Rosenzweig and Corey for making this happen. And I would totally run it back. This was way too short.
Yeah, run it back.
New York City. Thank you all so much. Have a great night. Appreciate it.
All right, man. All right.
We'll be in touch soon, Ferg.
All right.